All right, so welcome to today's podcast. I'm your host, Scott Engler, published author and thought leader on contemporary job search strategies and really transitioning out of your current job to a different company, different role, even something more as a freelancer consultant, and optimizing your LinkedIn, where over 95% of recruiters are looking for you. So today I want to talk about a recent post I made last week. I wanted to do a podcast on it, and it's 3 clear signs it's time to start packing your bags and leave your current job. So before I get into the 3, I do want to share that, as I say to my clients, that you are the expert of your own industry, and you are the expert obviously on your skills and talents overall. You're also very much more well aware of your company and its politics, especially if you've been over there, a decade, 2 decades, even 3 decades, and the changes and shifts it's gone throughout the years. However, there are often things that are very not clear to you because you've been there so long, because you've been jaded, because you lose sight of certain things that are clear as day to people from the outside. It's just like a marriage, right? And so it's really the same thing as like a bad relationship or marriage that's gone bad, where the behavior or abuse or whatever it is has become so normal that you just get used to it and you don't really see it anymore. And it's until you have an outside perspective or move away from it that you're able to see it more clearly. Now, the challenge is that we become so attached to certain things and get, as they say, comfortable in our discomfort, so we will probably stay in there a lot longer. Most people that I speak with or work with have admittedly stayed in a lot longer than they wish they would have, and in hindsight, when they leave and they're like feeling so much better and whatnot, a lot of times they go through these stages of grieving, and one of them is being frustrated with themselves for staying in there so long. And I just had this conversation last week with a client, but the main thing is to be honest with yourself and to look at things more clearly. So the 3 things I'm going to go over are things that clients that I've worked with longer term have gone through, and also using a few of my own personal examples when I was working in corporate America of clear signs that it was time for me to get out. So the first one is this being blamed for things that you didn't do and accused of things. And so there's a lot of clients that I've worked with and people job seekers that are frustrated that I speak with that are saying the same thing, that they've gotten accused of something, they're getting blamed for things that they didn't do. There's this kind of, usually what I find is the people that are getting blamed are usually seem like the more honest ones, especially the ones that I work with and know really well. And people that they're working with are just vindictive, and they kind of conspire against them in these situations. And one I do want to share, because it was really a good eye-opener, was this lady stuck it in there a lot longer than probably she needed to, and was getting blamed for things, and eventually she got blamed by someone at a high level role, and this was a company she had been at for 30 years, mind you, done a great job. She was an executive assistant, and when we started working together, she was just distraught. And one of the things she was distraught about was not only the way things ended with her company, but the fact that she got accused of stealing a lot of money from this company. And obviously it was a horrible thing for her to leave on. The CEO thought she had stolen money, and he's like, how could you do this to me? We've worked together so closely, because she was an executive assistant for so many years, And so she left like that. And it turned out, like, I think maybe a year or so later, somehow accounting or someone put together that she didn't take the money, and I don't remember exactly how it turned out, but the damage was already done, and for the most part. She already knew what she didn't do, but everybody else thought she did it or was, unsure. And so she left this company she'd put in her heart and soul into for 30 years with people that she'd worked for decades, thinking she had stolen money from the company. And it turned out later that, she didn't, but at that point it was like a lot of the damage was done and couldn't be replaced. So that's where it's like, hey, if you're getting blamed for things and you see that and it's not getting resolved, it's time to get out, because the point of that client's example is that it could get a lot worse. And so the second one is this: basically, you've been at a company for a while, and in the past you've probably worked your way up, to some type of mid-level or upper level management, and you've hit the ceiling, and you've had exemplary performance at your company for a long time. You've been promoted, you've gotten bonuses, this, that, and the other, but for a long time now, the company has not showed you any type of appreciation or compensation for what you've been doing. So when I say this is where I want to get clear about something to differentiate. If you're just wanting a promotion because you want one, and just because you think you should get one, that's not really always going to fly well with your company. But if you are continuing to show proven results and a track record, and you've been promoted in the past, and then you're getting, your company has just made you a lot of promises that they haven't kept, that's what I'm talking about. And so I've had clients that for well over 6 months, sometimes like years, have been made promises that weren't kept. Either they were going to make a new role for them because they couldn't, move up any further, or they were talking about giving them a promotion or whatever. There was, my clients had been assertive with where they were wanting to go in the company, and as I say, it's fallen on deaf ears. Either the company just kind of looks the other way, or they are making some type of promise to kind of keep you there, and they're really just, full of baloney. They have no intention. And so time and time again, it's like that the client is waiting out and holding out for something that's really never going to happen, and it's insidious and deceptive. It's oftentimes the clients, because I think the challenge is that the company had promoted them in the past, and they had done some of those things in the past, but for whatever reason things had changed, and so they're not doing this anymore. And so it's a really hard process, right, for people to go through, and they get caught up in the insanity of that. So if you are honest with yourself and you're like, wow, I have hit the ceiling at my company and things have fallen on deaf ears, or like I like to say, you're working for a company that is no longer really working for you. That's the bottom line there. And something to share from my own experience, what I want to kind of blend into number 2 here is, if you are being demanded of doing more things at your current position, and are A, not being compensated, B, not given the tools and support you need, and C, just you could tell that they're going to hold you to it, then start looking for another job, because you're going to drive yourself crazy, you're going to get sick physically, mentally, spiritually, and you're going to get laid off, and it's going to reflect poorly on you in the end for leaving that way. So try to get out on your own terms. And I want to share a personal example of this for me. When I was a clinician, I was working somewhere, and the company that I was working for was funded by the government. And so what kept happening was they kept increasing the billable hours that were required of us. Now, what happened was, not only were they upping the requirements of us, which were already really, really high, but they also took away a staff member of mine that I needed to help me see clients and whatnot, and played a pivotal role in me getting, the work done that I needed, and, accomplishing what they were requesting of me. So not only did they start requesting more, but they took away my support. They took away a full-time staff member. So what ended up happening for me was, I stuck it out because they told me that we were going to get someone new in that position. They never did, and what ended up happening was I ended up getting laid off because I wasn't meeting the billing requirements. And so I'm not ashamed of that. That's why I'm not afraid to share that. But if you are seeing that companies are putting these excessive demands on you and unrealistic expectations, and they're not giving you the right tools at all, even if you're asking for them. And by the way, please, one thing I do want to be clear about is advocate and speak up for yourself first. Don't. Maybe it is something as simple as you're not asking for help or letting people know, like, hey, there's no way I could accomplish everything you're asking of me in this time frame with these resources and staff that I have. So that's called healthy advocation. But if you've done that and nothing's changing and you could tell that they're just going to hold you to these ridiculous standards, it's time to start looking for a new job and start doing it fast, because in my experience they will hold you to it and you will be the one that gets fired. So that is number 2. Number 3 is if pivotal managers at your company are fired unexpectedly, and there was no clear signs of that happening or no explanation afterward as to why they were fired. This is from my own experience again. Maybe it was the field I was in, but I know it's not the case, because there's a lot of I've heard a lot of similar stories. I just can't think of anyone specifically other than my own, because I remember that so well. Is I was working at a clinic at the time, outpatient clinic, and I was a counselor, and our managing director and like the key medical technician that had been there for a while were both just fired within like a week. And there was no signs of why. Honestly, they were working their butts off. Everyone loved our director. So, and of course it's like, well, was there a reason? Possibly, but that place was already seemed like such a crazy, chaotic place to work that was just one of many rule changes or things just happening suddenly that were a turn for the worse. So once some of our key leaders just left, all hell broke loose. It was like there was a struggle for power. They brought in somebody that didn't know what she was doing, and it was just like almost like that book, The Lost Boys or something, where there was just like this power struggle. Assistant managers were trying to take control. People were being really vindictive, and it just got really ugly really fast. And so, while that's obviously not always the case, that was my experience. But I think you're wise enough to know how things have been at your company and what changes have taken place. But from what I've heard and what I've experienced myself is when there is multiple key players that are just let go right away, and if you're in upper management and there's really there was no signals or red flags as to why, you didn't see this coming, especially if these were people that you collaborated with a lot at your company, and just the thing happened really quick, and you're not in the know and you should be in the know, I would recommend getting out of there, because either you're going to get fired next or things are going to get really crazy. So those are the 3 scenarios that I wanted to share with you today. And as the challenge I put in the post, my challenge for you, if you're listening to this, is to get really honest with yourself. Are any of these things currently happening at my job? And what I would recommend you do is this week, pick 2 people that you really trust and respect. People that will be honest and direct with you when necessary. And I would just get really, really honest with them about your situation. Now, of course, use good judgment. You might not want to share with your boss at this point in time, or maybe you do. Maybe that's your step. But I would recommend first, maybe talk to somebody that I would really usually recommend talking to somebody in the outside. because they're not involved in it. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times what I found is when I was talking to people at my company, you know, they're also blinded by a lot of things, and they're obviously still staying there, so they're not seeing things clearly either. So what I would do is I would get an outside perspective from people that you respect and trust, and see what their reaction or response is. You know, my client last week told me that when he told his business coach that he was leaving the company he just resigned last week, that his business coach said, "Yeah, I honestly thought you would have resigned like 2 years ago from what was going on and what you've been telling me." So obviously, you know, the business coach was clear that like things were awful and that he felt like he should have left years ago. So maybe you have people like that in your life that you could just be really honest about what's going on and what the challenges are, and see what they says, and see what your own response is as you're sharing what's going on. See how you feel in your inside as you're sharing it. As sometimes I know when I'm sharing certain things openly and honestly, it's like I could almost witness what I'm saying as I'm saying it, and feel what feelings are coming out of my body, or how it sounds as I'm saying it, if that makes sense. So that would be my challenge to you, and I hope you have a wonderful week and have a powerful experience if you're listening and doing this, and it really shakes you up to what the next step is for what you want to do. And if you're looking to work with a professional who has taken many people through this process, who's taken myself through this process as well, of transitioning out of a toxic work environment into something better, and to be somewhere where you're really appreciated and valued and feel more peaceful. Like my client said last week, he was like, I already feel 10 times more peaceful. And the truth is that, people sometimes wait until it gets too bad, but honestly, if you could start leaving before it gets to like a level 9 or 10, that's ideal. You know, this guy had spent lots of money now on seeing a therapist. He took some time off because he just hung in there way too long and was just like bloodied and wounded. And that's what a lot of people do, or they get accused of stealing money and, possible lawsuits and all sorts of crazy things, where then it's just an ongoing, it doesn't end, right? Because then they're tied up in court. There's a whole lot of things involved, and the wisdom would be to not let it get that bad, and to not have to find out if it's going to get that bad, right? Get off that ship if you see signs that it's going to be sinking. So that's the message for today. And remember, the path to experiencing different results begins with asking different questions and taking different actions, one step at a time.